Hi, Mom. I don't know anything about it.
I figured out how to get one of those pendants like afterwards.
I feel like this would have been different.
I'd do it for I'm too late now. I would have
Wave to your family, try.
I did. Not necessarily. I don't know who this is, but I'm waving anyway. This is really This is what it feels like to be a celebrity.
Yeah, paparazzi goes wild.
I felt a little bit.
Now we have a 2-hour speech. Just coincidentally go home during that wasn't the plan, right?
I don't think they took.
actually?
We're looking too good.
Oh yeah.
Wait, guys, why is my mom not reading this? So sad.
Yeah. It means shut the fuck up.
Wait, there's a sword?
I have no idea.
Your butt break down. God, he looks just like you.
It's a year long. It's a year long. Alright, what's up?
Okay. I like pistol.
You have to. Look at guys with your kids like that. I want to like stay around.
What are you talking about?
Fuck graduation. This is it.
I think they're doing that for everything.
Okay. I think you have the best outfit.
I'm like,
I know.
really is.
Sitting outside.
Yep.
Did you take a picture?
It was all worth it.
I walked in, I'm walking right out.
Graduation. Oh yeah, graduation.
It was a very similar path. He was going the other way, and their parents. Oh, because UVA is private, right?
Okay. Love you.
Stop clapping. It's okay.
Make the young kids. Sociology! Woo!
Sociology!
Reppin'!
Put the data inside. Is it on?
Maybe some bagels. When I smile, you smile. Here, you. Okay.
No, these days.
I was supposed to wait.
Hey.
Word up, word up.
What up, baby?
Please remain standing.
Please attend to our land acknowledgement. Brown University is located in Providence, Rhode Island, on lands that are within the ancestral homelands of the Narragansett Indian tribe. We acknowledge that beginning with colonization and continuing for centuries, the Narragansett Indian tribe was dispossessed of most of their ancestral lands in Rhode Island by the actions of individuals and institutions. We acknowledge our responsibility to understand and to respond to those actions. The Narragansett Indian tribe, whose ancestors stewarded these lands with great care, continue as a sovereign nation today. We commit to working together to honor our past and to build our future with truth. Let us pray. Source of life's mercy, we do gather on land not ours, in time long awaited and yet borrowed, from the busyness of a needy world, under skies both too present in rain and yet missing today in a disguise of cloudless blue. We ask the poet's courage to be wind for the kite and kite for the wind on this day of brilliant beginning. Through Brown's beloved Van Wickle, we've stepped together, mindful of the loving kindness and extraordinary generosity from beloved family, our teachers, coaches, dear friends, all those whose gifts daily furnish our lives with all that we know of love and this great university, with time, intellect, teaching, and treasure. In this quiet, we declare loudly, celebratively, a new season beginning. We bid the world and the heavens to attend to our moment, but we know that our requests ascend amid a world of profound need, where cries quite different from our own emerge from landscapes of flood, fire, war, famine, and even numbed indifference. We too attend. And here we seek to understand deeply, and in hope we strive to be the architects of rescue and systemic change, to declare this work to be the purpose of our worthy Brunonian lives. We choose the world's voices, its greatest needs, as the work of our academic season, knowing that our neighbors, our family, our planet all await our endeavor and even our success. These dilemmas are the hope of the Brown's Charter, that Brown's graduates will demonstrate capacity to discharge the offices of life with usefulness and reputation. Ever true, may our shared strength, faith, and word express and protect our collective and individual work, and voice a reply to history that moral dignity and worth can never be abridged in the name of sacred purpose. May our blessing and our privilege, the deepest curriculum of this place of study and of life itself be a path to love justice, to act with compassion, to walk in humility, and enable us to incarnate hope. May we be granted the capacity to reply to the call of the world and into the dazzling chaos of human need and the privilege of Earth's urgent, exquisite, fragile beauty. Seek to be blessing today and always. Be seated, Brown, and welcome our president.
Members of the Brown community, faculty, staff, alumni, parents, and students, it is my great pleasure as president of Brown University to declare the 259th academic year open. I extend my warmest welcome to members of the entering classes of the medical school, the graduate school, and the college. Among them are 1,211 talented doctoral and master's students, 144 dedicated medical students, 10 resumed undergraduate education students, individuals who have gained valuable life experience between high school and their entrance to Brown. 104 very, very wise transfer students. And of course, 1,721 exceptional first-year students, the core of the great Brown University class of 2026. Welcome, welcome to all of you. It is so great to see you here. I just finished my 10th year at Brown, and this is my 11th convocation. And I was thinking about this because my first convocation 11 years ago, it rained hard. We didn't have a march. This ceremony was held in the Pizzatola Athletic Center, which is great if you're going to a basketball or volleyball game, but it's not for this. And so when the torrents came down this week, I thought, okay, we learned one thing during the pandemic. We learned that we can be flexible. And so we decided to change this opening convocation to this beautiful, glorious day. So I'm glad you could all be here. Now, that was a break from tradition, which is fine. We don't adhere to our traditions always, but we do have one tradition that I love, which is every year at convocation, we hear from a distinguished faculty speaker. So in a few minutes, I will introduce Tejal Desai, who is our brand new Dean of the School of Engineering. She's also, another reason to applaud, she's also a Brown alumna, and we are thrilled to have her back in Providence. But before I introduce her, I want to share a few thoughts about how I hope you will get the most of your time out of Brown. You know, over the past weeks, and I've talked to so many of you, it's been marvelous during orientations and move-in. I could feel your excitement about starting at this great university. And for graduate and medical school students, I think a lot of it is just the joy of being around a group of kindred spirits, people who are as passionately committed to your fields of study as you are. For undergraduates, a little bit different. It's a sense of freedom to study new subjects of your own choosing, to experiment with a wide range of activities and clubs and everything you want to do. Meet people who will become your lifelong friends, which is really special. So all that's true. This afternoon, and I know you've gotten a lot of advice during orientation, I will be brief, but I want to offer, I was going to say two, but I'm going to throw in one more, 3 pieces of advice that I hope will enrich your journeys at Brown. And the first one, which I'm just sort of putting in here, and excuse me if I sound like a mother, I am a mother, so I can't help myself, which is I want all of you to take care of yourselves. You're going to want to plunge in full tilt. Remember that this is a marathon going through a rigorous academic program. So that means get enough sleep, drink enough water, go to the gym, join a club sport, eat right, pace yourselves, take care of yourselves. I really mean that, physical and mental health. So that's piece of advice number one. Please excuse me, but tell your mothers that I did that, okay? Thanks. So the second point, which is also, I think, really important, is I hope all of you learn from the amazing diversity of this community. During your orientations, I'm sure you noticed that Brown's student body, undergraduate, graduate medical, is anything but homogeneous. You come from every corner of the world. You represent nearly every socioeconomic group, political persuasion, religious affiliation, cultural background. Many of you are the first in your families to attend college or graduate school. Some of you have served in the military. Beyond that, each of you has a unique personal story and a distinctive set of talents that you brought here. And that's why we're so happy to have all of you. It's this diversity, this amazing blending of stories and ideas and talents across multiple dimensions that fuels the richness of your learning experience. But if students feel like they have to conform, that they can't fully be themselves, fully express themselves, share who they are, then that ability to learn from each other is squandered. It's a missed opportunity. So what my advice is, don't let that happen. Share your experiences and views with confidence, even if sometimes they're surprising to others, others don't agree. Listen to and learn from each other with humility and respect. I hope what you all find is that Brown is a very kind community, something we put a lot of stock in. We place a premium on treating others with dignity. Kindness should not be at odds with being the really vibrant, intellectually open campus from which we all benefit. Second piece of advice, very different. Get involved in research as early and as often as possible. Brown is one of the world's leading research universities. We are committed to advancing knowledge and understanding in the service of the world. It's what distinguishes a high school from a great university. This is core to our mission. It's core to our identity. The professors you get to know, and you've started already, but you'll get to know them more in the coming weeks, they're not just here to teach classes. They write books that inform us about the most important issues of the day. They run scientific laboratories that lead to advances in medicine and public health and technology and other areas. They create art that helps us understand ourselves and each other better. And here's the best part. This is really the best part. As students, you have the opportunity, and in fact, you are strongly encouraged to be full partners in this great enterprise of knowledge creation. Now, this is going to be obvious for those of you who are PhD students, because your doctoral training is all about generating new ideas and producing scholarship. But it's also true for all of our other students, from first-year students on up. So, I look around this university, there's so many things I'm proud of, but one of them is the research that's happening. Teams of Brown undergraduates and graduate students routinely work together with faculty and postdoctoral researchers in labs and archives and in the field. Currently, we have students who are exploring hyper-local air pollution in Providence, studying the biodiversity of marine life in the Galapagos Islands, and yeah, they do get to go there, that's a good one. Investigating gender-based violence during the pandemic, considering the linkage between underfunded public defenders programs and high incarceration rates. I could go on and on. These experiences can be life-changing, and they often vault students into the work that they continue throughout their lives. Now, we've been doing a lot to ensure that research opportunities are visible and accessible to all of our students. So last year, the SPRINT program, which supports student research and internship opportunities during the summer and the academic year, that program provided nearly $4 million in funding to support over 800 undergraduate students, including 200 first-year students, more than 10% of the first-year class. This fall, the number of posted faculty research opportunities in the program has doubled, and more than 150 students have already received funding for research projects in disciplines across the university: American Studies, archaeology, physics, sociology. I could go on and on. Getting involved is easy. There's the Brown Connect Sprint Ultra website. You can find that. Keep an eye out for messages from the college in the coming months. So that was a piece of advice number 3. Let me move to our introduction of our speaker. And our speaker today is someone whose time at Brown was enriched through her early involvement in research. And so it's my great pleasure to introduce our new Sorensen Family Dean of Engineering, Tejal Desai. And I am just so thrilled that she's joined us here at Brown. I'm grateful that she accepted my invitation to be our keynote speaker. She's been here about a week, like 6 days, 6 on the job, so really great that she decided to do this. Dean Desai comes to us from the University of California, San Francisco. She's an accomplished biomedical engineer. Her research spans multiple disciplines, from materials engineering to cell biology to tissue engineering, pharmacological delivery systems to develop new therapeutic interventions for disease. With such broad cross-disciplinary work, which is a hallmark of the Brown education, as all of you know, it's no surprise that she began her higher education journey right here on College Hill. She received her Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Engineering here in 1994. She was once in the very seats you're sitting in today. Dean Desai has titled her address, Breaking Boundaries and Building Bridges Through Community and Collaboration. Please join me in welcoming Dean Desai. Thank you.
Good morning. President Paxson, Provost Locke, distinguished members of the Brown Corporation, faculty and staff colleagues, and especially you, the incoming class, I welcome you to Brown. It is truly a privilege for me to be here today to celebrate the beginning of your journey at this institution. You are an entering class unlike any before, one that has persevered through 2+ years of a pandemic, one that has borne witness to societal challenges, including systemic racism, scientific distrust, global inequalities, and increasing limits on reproductive rights. But you were also a class that has seen the impact that breaking boundaries and building collaborative bridges can have on the world we live in, enabling us to uncover and solve some of our world's most challenging problems. Importantly, you are a group who is poised to redefine the boundaries of what we know and what we work on, to push the boundaries of the ideas that often divide us, and break down the boundaries that limit our connection and community. But what do I mean by boundaries, and why should they be broken? As an engineer, I was taught that to break means to fracture into multiple pieces. And a boundary is often an imposed barrier, one that can be physical or abstract. But I also learned that a bridge can be a connector, a boundary breaker, an intrusion into a bounded space. So how can we break down barriers and not let imposed boundaries limit our potential? How can we build bridges to join our communities together? As the new Dean of Engineering at Brown, this is my 7th official day on the job. However, this is not a new community for me. In fact, my journey has taken me full circle. It was 32 years ago that I was sitting where you are, pondering my future with excitement and trepidation, wondering where my journey would take me. The year was 1990, and it was also a time of change in our world, where boundaries were being pushed and redefined. Just a year earlier, the Tiananmen Square massacre had occurred, where troops and tanks fired on student demonstrators and those trying to block military advances into Tiananmen Square. Students called for greater accountability, constitutional due process, democracy, and freedom of speech. It was also the year following the fall of the Berlin Wall, one of the series of events that led to the start of the fall of communism in Eastern and Central Europe. But it was also a time of great technological change. The start of the Human Genome Project, the launch of the Hubble Space Telescope. And as I sat where you are, there was a sense that the world was changing and we couldn't just be passive observers. Little did I know that the journey I was about to begin would fundamentally change my perspective and my purpose. Growing up in Southern California, the daughter of immigrant parents from India, I never thought of studying at a place like Brown. I was one of a handful of Asian Americans in my high school in the late 80s and was constantly reminded of unspoken boundaries, invisible barriers that limited who could participate and who could not. So when it was time to think about college, I jumped at the chance to leave what I knew to find a community where boundaries could be pushed and barriers broken down. And it was this school in Rhode Island, a state where Californians often don't realize exists, that caught my attention. So much so that I chose it over some schools more technical in nature, including some not too far away, to the dismay of several friends and relatives. As an undergrad, I studied biomedical engineering. This was a brand new field in the early 90s, and Brown was one of the few universities to offer this as a degree. I still remember seeing an artificial heart and thinking how amazing it was that a synthetic implant, one that was made of plastics and metals, could extend human life. The idea of learning both engineering and medicine and bringing them together captured my imagination. And it was this early glimpse of the power of technology to change human health and impact society that set me off on my academic trajectory, in which I was determined to solve some of society's most challenging problems. I was excited about breaking down those walls between disciplines and what we could discover if we moved past traditional boundaries. But engineering and medicine were not the only boundaries I sought to cross. I came to Brown because of the open curriculum, as many of you have also realized, but more importantly, a mindset of interdisciplinary education and dialogue. While studying engineering, I became immersed in student government, social change, student activism. Courses in sociology, political science, and ethnic studies allowed me to explore and understand my own identity and find communities with shared experiences. I remember putting together an independent study project with fellow minority peer counselors on activism and the Asian American diaspora. In fact, I spent long hours in that building over there, University Hall, convincing administrators, including deans like myself now, that Brown needed to push for more diverse faculty, students, and need-blind admissions. And realizing that Brown could lead the way and would. When I entered Brown, I felt that these two worlds were in conflict: engineering and social change. But it was only after I left this institution that I realized that as an engineer, I had both the tools and the knowledge to impact society for the better. I saw how critical it was to understand scientific problems and processes within the larger context of humanities and the arts, but also the importance of pursuing humanities and arts with a grounding in the impact of technology on society. And as we have witnessed over the last several years, scientific advances for the benefit of society often require knowledge of disciplines like political science, policy, sociology, and psychology. Importantly, it is also clear that the application of science and engineering to address the great challenges of our time requires critical thinking and collaboration, fostered by a community that values everyone. Many years later, it is this disruption of boundaries that also brings me back to Brown. Becoming Dean of Engineering is my chance to return to a place that values community, seeks to break boundaries that can expand knowledge, and promote change. And this opportunity will allow me not only to use my engineering background to build nanoscale devices to treat disease, but also help build our community more broadly. And in the next several years, you too will cross and break many boundaries, allowing for transformative impact on society. Some of you will combine engineering and public health to develop accessible technology. Others will study public policy with an eye towards understanding and addressing homelessness. Some will study environmental science while working with community leaders to better understand pollutants in our neighborhoods, or learn the entrepreneurial aspects of translating innovation into products, or pursue poetry, literature, and performing arts to explore and affect the human experience. And most importantly, you will not stop at the boundaries of existing knowledge, but rather seek to address the challenges yet unseen. And it is your potential to break down these boundaries that makes me excited for the future. But there are also more abstract boundaries that I've encountered throughout my career. A boundary that as a woman, I didn't think I could cross. A boundary that often made me feel like I did not belong, amplified by a lack of female engineering professors and almost no faculty from historically underrepresented groups during my academic experience. As an engineering student at Brown, I struggled my first year. There were so many things I wanted to do and experience, but in many ways, I didn't have the academic preparation that some of my peers did. I didn't know it was okay to ask questions of my professors, or that it was okay, actually encouraged, to work collaboratively with others. When my advisor suggested that maybe I should think about other concentrations, I remember thinking that I was a failure, and my dream of being a biomedical engineer was slowly fading. But luckily, I became engaged in research. I found an amazing mentor, and with her support, as well as my family, gained the confidence to continue my journey. And although I survived engineering and ultimately benefited from the rigor and the depth of the curriculum, I was determined not to let others feel the way I did that year, to feel that they weren't good enough. So for many years after I graduated from Brown, and still to this day, I make it a point to introduce science and engineering to middle school students, to students at all levels, particularly girls, because this is the time in their lives, As you can imagine, that is pivotal for gaining confidence to pursue STEM in higher education. I can still remember a session quite vividly. I was in a middle school classroom and we were doing liquid chromatography using paper and food coloring, talking about the separation of molecules. And one girl in my group remarked that I didn't look like a scientist. Of course, I immediately stopped that activity and probed why. And the answer, you can imagine, was not surprising. It is 30 years later, but we still have work to do to ensure that students are not turned off from their passion. I am only here because somebody took the time to encourage me when I didn't think I could do engineering. And because of that, I have realized that we all have a responsibility to redefine and ultimately reshape the boundaries that limit the success of those around us. And remember that at the heart of all we do is humanity, understanding how we choose to impact others. And it is this reshaping of boundaries that continues to influence me as a professor, as a mentor, and as a leader. Importantly, breaking down boundaries does not need to be done in isolation. Over the years, and in particular in the last couple of years, I have learned how important it is to find allies, supporters, and advocates, and to keep moving forward together. I know many of you were catalysts to push boundaries and build bridges inside and outside of your schools, homes, and communities, and I hope that you continue to do so here through community and collaboration. And as you embark on this next journey, you may take a fairly linear progression, free of major stumbling blocks or barriers, or you may arrive at a barrier and choose to take an alternate or somewhat circuitous route. You might even consider how to jump over that barrier or build a bridge to get across it. And perhaps you might even follow two paths simultaneously. But in any case, you will be moving forward, opening doors, engaging, debating, and solving new problems. You will move beyond the predictable boundaries of your comfort zone to achieve new heights. And no matter what journey you take, I hope you keep using your voice, staying true to your values, and pushing the boundaries when necessary. And as you do, there may be moments where you question your decisions or are faced with uncertainty. But always remember who you are and what you value. For me, I still recall sitting in the classroom convincing my middle school students that they too could be scientists. And that glimmer of excitement of what could be her future, the one that I had as a young girl, continues to motivate me to break those boundaries, and it's a vision I carry every single day. As author Eileen Cook said, "How will I know who I can become if I don't give myself the chance to push myself beyond my normal boundaries?" So I leave you with this. What can be accomplished by breaking down boundaries and building new bridges, and what boundaries do you want to break next? I wish you well in this next journey, and may you always be breaking down the boundaries that keep us from achieving our full potential. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. So thank you, Dean Desai. I think you all understand why our joy at having her back at Brown is as strong as it is. It's great to have you, and thank you for really amazing remarks. I wanted this group welcome. You're awesome. This is the most beautiful group of entering students I've ever seen. Don't tell any other group. And I want you to give yourself a round of applause before we sing the alma mater. So now what I'd like you to do is join the higher keys in singing the Brown alma mater. This is another tradition of most Brown ceremonies. You may not know the words yet. By the time you graduate, I expect you to have remembered every single one. Anyway, please, go ahead. Yeah, stand. Stand up, you'll sing better. Yeah.
We hail thee with loyal devotion, and bring to thine altar our offerings of praise. Our hearts swell within us with joyful emotion, as the name of Old Brown in loud chorus we raise. The happiest moments of youth's fleeting hours we've passed 'neath the shade of these time-honored walls, and sorrows as transient as April's brief showers have clouded our life in Brunonia's halls.
Thank you. That's it. We are now concluded. Thank you.
The program has concluded. Thank you for attending and good luck this academic year.